The morning sun filtered through the kitchen windows as Sarah arranged 7 pink candles on Emma's birthday cake. Everything had to be perfect. The princess decorations, the carefully planned menu, the guest list that included both sides of their fractured family. At 7 years old, Emma deserved a day unmarred by the tensions that had been building between her parents for months. "Daddy, look!" Emma burst into the kitchen wearing her new birthday dress, twirling so the fabric billowed around her like a flower. "Do I look like a real princess?" Michael looked up from his laptop where he'd been frantically responding to work emails. "You look beautiful, sweetheart, just like your mom." He caught Sarah's eye across the room, and for a moment, the familiar warmth flickered between them, a reminder of happier times, when compliments came naturally, before financial stress had turned every conversation into a minefield. Sarah felt her chest tighten. These moments of tenderness had become increasingly rare, overshadowed by mounting bills, missed promotions, and Michael's stubborn pride that prevented him from accepting help from anyone, especially her family. She forced a smile and returned to arranging the party favors, each small gesture an attempt to maintain normalcy for Emma's sake. The doorbell rang at exactly 2 o'clock, and Emma raced to answer it. Sarah's sister Jennifer entered first, arms laden with perfectly wrapped presents and wearing the kind of confident smile that came from never having to check her bank balance before making a purchase. Behind her came their parents, followed by Michael's quieter family, his mother clutching a homemade card, his father carrying a modest gift bag. "Happy birthday, my darling!" Jennifer swooped Emma into an elaborate hug, her designer perfume filling the air. "I have something very special for you." As the afternoon unfolded, Sarah watched the familiar dynamics play out. Her family's easy generosity, the expensive dollhouse, the brand name clothes, the casual mentions of their upcoming vacation contrasted sharply with the careful budgeting that governed every decision in her own household. She saw Michael's jaw tighten each time Jennifer made another extravagant gesture, each gift a reminder of what he couldn't provide. The party games were in full swing when Michael stepped onto the back porch for air. The laughter from inside felt distant, muffled by the weight of his thoughts. 3 months behind on the mortgage, credit cards maxed out, and now Emma's school had sent another notice about overdue fees. He'd been applying for better positions for over a year, but in a competitive market, his mid-level experience felt insufficient. "You look like you could use this." Jennifer appeared beside him, offering a beer. Her presence always made me feel like a failure, though she'd never said anything directly. It was in the way she looked around their modest home, the subtle pause before she complimented Sarah's cooking, the overcompensation in her gifts for Emma. "Thanks." He accepted the beer, knowing he should refuse. Alcohol was an expense they couldn't afford, but needing the brief escape it might provide. "Sarah mentioned you're looking for a new position." Jennifer's tone was carefully neutral, but Michael detected the underlying assessment. "My company is expanding their marketing department. The salary would be substantial." The word hung between them, loaded with implication. Michael had heard about Jennifer's company before, cutting-edge tech startup where she served as VP AI. The kind of place that offered 6-figure salaries and stock options. The kind of opportunity that could solve all their problems. "I appreciate the thought, but I'm not really qualified for tech marketing." His pride spoke before his practical mind could intervene. Jennifer's smile was patient, pitying. "Actually, they're looking for someone with your exact background. Consumer goods experience is exactly what they need to reach mainstream markets." Through the sliding glass door, Michael could see Emma opening Jennifer's elaborate dollhouse, her face glowing with pure joy. Sarah knelt beside their daughter, helping arrange the tiny furniture, her own expression a mixture of gratitude and something that looked suspiciously like relief.
relief that someone in Emma's life could provide the kind of magical moments that he couldn't afford to create. "Let me think about it," he said finally, hating himself for the compromise, even as the words left his mouth.
Inside, the party had moved to the gift opening ceremony. Emma sat surrounded by a mountain of presents, her 7-year-old excitement infectious enough to momentarily lift everyone's spirits. Sarah watched her daughter's joy with a bittersweet ache, knowing that Michael was struggling with feelings of inadequacy that she couldn't seem to address without making things worse. "This one's from Mommy and Daddy," Sarah announced, handing Emma their carefully chosen gift, an art set they'd found on sale, supplemented with a handmade coupon book promising special daddy-daughter art sessions. Emma's genuine delight as she explored each colored pencil and marker warmed Sarah's heart. "Look, Daddy, we can drop pictures together." Michael's smile was real this time, unforced. "We'll make masterpieces, Princess." But the moment was interrupted by Jennifer's theatrical gasp. "Oh, Emma, I almost forgot. I have one more surprise for you." I produced an envelope from her purse. "It's a certificate for art classes at the community center, private lessons with a real artist." The room fell silent. Sarah felt the air leave her lungs as she watched Michael's face transform, the brief joy replaced by something darker. Emma, oblivious to the undercurrents, clapped her hands in delight. "Can I start tomorrow, please, Mommy?" We'll see, sweetheart," Sarah managed, shooting a warning look at her sister. But Jennifer either didn't see it or chose to ignore it, basking in Emma's gratitude. Michael excused himself to check on something in the kitchen, and Sarah followed, leaving Emma to be fussed over by the grandparents. She found him standing at the sink, gripping the counter so tightly his knuckles had gone white. "Michael, she didn't mean what? To show everyone that I can't even afford proper art lessons for my own daughter?" His voice was barely controlled, a whisper that somehow carried more impact than shouting would have. "That's not what this is about. Isn't it?" He turned to face her, and Sarah saw years of accumulated frustration in his eyes. "When was the last time I could give Emma something that made her face light up like that? When was the last time you looked at me the way you looked at Jennifer just now?" "What are you talking about?" "Grateful, Sarah. You looked grateful that someone else could give our daughter what I can't." The confrontation was interrupted by Emma's voice calling from the living room. They returned to find her showing off her gifts to her grandfather, her innocent joy a stark contrast to the tension radiating from her parents. Sarah tried to focus on her daughter's happiness, but Michael's words echoed in her mind, carrying an uncomfortable grain of truth. As the afternoon wore on, conversations flowed around topics that highlighted the growing divide. Jennifer casually mentioned her recent promotion, their parents discussed their planned renovation, and Michael's family spoke in the careful tones of people trying not to mention their own financial struggles. Sarah found herself caught between worlds, wanting to support her husband while simultaneously grateful for her family's ability to provide opportunities for Emma that they couldn't afford. The breaking point came during cake time. As they gathered around the dining table, Jennifer raised her glass of champagne. When had she opened champagne? And proposed a toast. To Emma, who's lucky enough to have so many people who believe in her future. It was an innocent enough sentiment, but Michael heard something else entirely. As the adults echoed the toast, he caught Jennifer's eye and saw what he interpreted as condescension, a subtle reminder of his inadequacy as a provider. "Actually," Michael said, his voice cutting through the warm chatter, "Jennifer has been incredibly supportive lately. She even offered me a job at her company." The room went quiet. Sarah felt her stomach drop as she recognized the dangerous edge in her husband's tone. Jennifer looked genuinely confused, clearly not understanding why he was bringing this up now, in this way. "Michael?" Sarah's warning was soft but urgent.
No, it's fine. I should be grateful, right? Jennifer believes in me. Isn't that wonderful? She believes in me so much that she thinks I'm qualified for a position that would pay 3 times my current salary. Jennifer's expression shifted from confusion to concern. Michael, I was just trying to help. Help. Right, he laughed, but there was no humor in it. Because clearly I need help. Clearly I'm not capable of taking care of my own family. Emma had stopped eating her cake. Her young face creased with worry as she looked between the adults. Sarah's heart broke seeing her daughter's confusion, the way the child's shoulders had begun to tense with anxiety. This isn't the place for this conversation, Sarah said firmly, moving closer to Emma. You're right, Michael agreed, but his voice suggested he was far from finished. This is Emma's day, a day when she gets to see exactly what her future could look like if someone other than her father was responsible for providing it.
The tension in the room was now palpable, and the other guests were beginning to exchange uncomfortable glances. Emma had set down her fork and was looking around the table with the instinctive awareness children have when adult conflicts threaten their world. Jennifer, trying to salvage the situation, attempted a light tone. Michael, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I genuinely think you'd be great for this position. The company really values what? My potential? My ability to learn? Or maybe they just value having someone desperate enough to be grateful for whatever scraps they throw my way. That's not fair, Jennifer said, her own composure beginning to crack. I was offering you an opportunity because I believe in your abilities, not out of pity. She believes in me, Michael repeated, turning to look directly at Sarah. There was something in his expression that made her stomach clench with dread. Emma was watching with wide, frightened eyes, and their families were frozen in uncomfortable silence. But Michael was past the point of stopping. Months of financial stress, wounded pride, and feeling like a failure in his own home had reached a crescendo. The birthday party, meant to be a celebration, had become a showcase of everything he couldn't provide, everything he wasn't. You know what, Jennifer? His voice dropped to a conversational tone that was somehow more terrifying than his earlier anger. Since you believe in me so much, since you're so confident in my abilities, maybe you'd like to make it official. Michael, please. Sarah reached for his arm, but he pulled away. She believes in me, he said again, looking around the table at their confused, concerned faces. She believes in me enough to offer me a job that could change our lives. She believes in me enough to pay for Emma's art classes, to buy her expensive gifts, to essentially subsidize our childhood. Jennifer's face had gone pale. Michael, that's not... So here's what I'm thinking. He continued, his voice gaining momentum. If you believe in me that much, if you're that confident in my potential, then you won't mind putting your money where your mouth is. The room held its breath. Emma had begun to cry quietly, not understanding what was happening, but sensing that something precious was breaking. Sarah felt as though she was watching their marriage dissolve in real time, helpless to stop it. She believes in me, Michael said one final time, his eyes locked on Sarah's horrified face. So maybe she can pay your rent, too. The silence that followed was deafening. Emma's quiet sobs were the only sound in the room until Jennifer stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I think we should go, she said, her voice shaking with hurt and anger. No, please. Sarah stood as well, reaching toward her sister. Jennifer, he didn't mean... Didn't I? Michael's voice was hollow now, the anger drained out of it, leaving only a terrible emptiness. Maybe I did mean it. Maybe that's exactly what we should do. Let the people who believe in me take care of everything. Emma's crying had escalated to full sobs now, and Sarah's mother quickly moved to comfort her granddaughter. The other guests began gathering their things with the awkward efficiency of people desperate to escape an uncomfortable situation.
Michael's parents approached him with worried expressions, but he shook his head and walked out of the room. Sarah found herself standing in her dining room, surrounded by the debris of what should have been a perfect day. Birthday decorations that had taken hours to put up now seemed garish and mocking. The carefully planned meal sat half-eaten on plates, the expensive cake Jennifer had brought reduced to smears of frosting as Emma had pushed her plate away. "Sweetheart, why don't you come with Grandma for a little while?" Sarah's mother suggested gently to Emma. "We can go to the park and feed the ducks." Emma nodded through her tears, and Sarah felt a wave of gratitude toward her mother for understanding that the child needed to be removed from the toxic atmosphere. As her parents prepared to leave with Emma, Jennifer approached Sarah with tears in her own eyes. "Sarah, I swear I was just trying to help. I never meant to make him feel—" "I know." Sarah pulled her sister into a hug, feeling Jennifer's body shake with suppressed emotion. "Then whose fault is it?" Jennifer asked, pulling back to look at her sister's face. "Because that man just humiliated you and me and everyone else at your daughter's birthday party." Sarah didn't have an answer. She watched her family leave, taking Emma to safety, and then turned to face the wreckage of her home. Michael was nowhere to be seen, probably locked in their bedroom or hidden in the garage where he went when he needed to escape the world. The house felt enormous and suffocating at the same time. Sarah began mechanically clearing the table, wrapping leftover cake, putting away decorations that would probably never be used again. Each mundane action felt surreal, as though she was sleepwalking through the cleanup of her marriage. When Michael finally emerged from wherever he'd been hiding, night had fallen. Sarah was sitting on the couch, still in her party clothes, staring at nothing. "Where's Emma?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "With my parents. I thought it was best." He nodded and sat down across from her, not on the couch, but in the chair that put the most distance between them while still being in the same room. "Sarah, I don't." Her voice was quiet but firm. "Just don't."
They sat in silence for a long time, the weight of what had happened settling between them like a physical presence. The house felt different now, as though the afternoon's events had fundamentally altered its structure, made it a place where trust had been shattered and words could never be taken back. "I'll call Jennifer tomorrow," Michael said finally. "Apologize." "Will you?" Sarah turned to look at him directly for the first time since the guests had left. "Will you really? Or will you find a way to make it her fault, the way you made it her fault that you felt inadequate?" He flinched, as though she'd slapped him. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" Sarah stood up, suddenly needing to move, to pace, to do something with the energy that was building inside her. "For months, Michael, months I've watched you take every kindness from my family as an insult. Every gift for Emma, every offer to help, every gesture of support, you've turned it all into evidence of your failures instead of seeing it for what it really was." Which was what? Love. The word came out as a whisper, but it carried the force of a shout. They love Emma. They love me. And believe it or not, they love you too. That job offer wasn't pity, Michael. It was Jennifer genuinely believing that you could succeed in a better environment. You don't understand what it's like to... What it's like to what? To have people who care about you want to see you happy? To have a support system that actually supports instead of tearing down? Sarah's voice was rising now, months of suppressed frustration finally finding release. "No, Michael, I don't understand what it's like to be so determined to fail that you sabotage every opportunity for success." "I haven't sabotaged anything." "Haven't you? What do you call what happened today? What do you call turning our daughter's birthday party into a public humiliation of everyone who's tried to help us?" Michael stood up as well, and for a moment they faced each other across their living room like adversaries rather than partners. I call it being honest about our situation instead of pretending everything is fine while your family subsidizes our lives. Our lives? Sarah laughed, but there was no humor in it. Michael, this stopped being about our lives the moment you decided that your pride was more important than Emma's happiness, the moment you chose to see assistance as insult and love as condescension. So what are you saying? Sarah looked around their home, the house they'd bought together when Emma was 2, the place where they'd planned to build their future. She thought about Emma's face during the party, the confusion and fear in her daughter's eyes as her father unraveled in front of everyone who mattered to them. I'm saying that Jennifer was right. She does believe in you. But believing in someone means wanting them to succeed, to be their best self, to accept help when they need it and offer it when they can. And the man who stood in our dining room today and humiliated his wife and his daughter's aunt because he was too proud to accept that someone might actually see value in him, that's not the man she believes in. And it's not the man I married. Michael's face went very still. What does that mean? It means, Sarah said quietly, that maybe it's time to figure out who you really are and whether that person is someone who can be part of a family that loves each other enough to help when help is needed. The silence stretched between them, filled with 7 years of marriage and all the dreams they'd shared and all the ways they'd failed each other. Outside, Sarah could hear the distant sound of children playing, the normal sounds of neighborhood life, continuing despite the fact that her world had fundamentally shifted. She believes in me, Michael said finally, repeating the phrase that had started it all. Yes, Sarah agreed, she does. The question is, do you believe in yourself enough to let her? Do you believe in us enough to try? As they stood there in their living room, surrounded by the remnants of their daughter's birthday party and the debris of their marriage, both of them knew that this moment would define everything that came after. The answer to Sarah's question would determine whether they could rebuild something stronger from the wreckage, or whether some things, once broken, could never be repaired. The choice, like everything else that mattered, would have to come from within, and that, perhaps, was the most terrifying prospect of all. If this story shocked you, just wait for what's next. Leave a comment, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and of course, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss a single notification.